So the summer between high school and college, I got a job as a counselor at a summer day camp. And I found out that I would be in charge of 15 six-year-old boys. Now I was 18 years old. I looked like I was about 12. I mean, I was a child myself. And I'd never done anything like this before, so I really wasn't sure how to go about this. So various people gave me advice, and what they said was, you have to show them who's boss right away. You have to make them respect you, maybe fear you a little bit, and then you can ease up a little bit, and that's what you should do. Now, this being the 70s and me being an idiot, I rejected this advice. And I said, I reject this authoritarian model. And I decided that I was going to be their friend, and I would be that really cool counselor that they would revere. And we would sort of support each other and give us each, we'd sort of both have this like mutually rewarding and satisfying summer experience that we would all remember for the rest of our lives. So the first day I sit them down and I say, okay, listen up guys, we're a team and we support each other. And that means that even though I'm the counselor and you're the campers, that doesn't mean that my opinion is any more valid than yours. And they're all looking at each other like, do you believe this fucking guy? And so then the first time that somebody did something they weren't supposed to do, I sit them down and I say, okay, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Now, I personally don't care, but because we're a team, we want to be the best team we can possibly be, and to do that, we have to follow the rules. And I said, do you agree? Well, no, they didn't agree. And we were not a team. It was a total disaster. They were, just all over the place. They would ignore me. They'd be fighting and kicking each other and spitting, and it was just horrible. And basically, they went all Lord of the Flies on me, and I was Piggy. And so, the worst part was the trips that we had to take out into the public, because I found out that, when you're a counselor, people in the public make this assumption that you're responsible for these kids because you are, in charge. And if something goes wrong, if they're behaving horribly, people blame you. So I had 3 trips that I still have nightmares about. The first trip was to Wolf Trap. The Wolf Trap had this like summer camp day, and all the different summer camps in summer day camps in the area would go to Wolf Trap. And it was kind of like, remember Goofus and Gallant in Children's Highlights magazine? All the other camps were Gallant. I mean, these kids they would like line up with military precision, and they would sing songs like those kids in The Sound of Music, and they seemed to really love their counselors, and their counselors seemed super professional. And we're on the other hand, we're Goofus, and we're like all over the place and breaking things and doing all these horrible things. And I look over and I see this counselor in this other camp, and this guy was everything that I wished I could be. And like I said, I was 18, but I looked like I was 12. This guy he was probably a couple years older than me. He was probably in college, and he looked like this really cool, like hippie god or like a rock star. He looked like Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin or something like that. So, God, I wish he probably had lots of girlfriends and stuff. And I noticed that he comes over to me, and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to talk to me. What's he going to say? It's kind of like I'm this man crush, And he comes up to me and he says, "Control your kids, man." I was crushed, and I'm like, I don't know how. And so that was the first trip. The second trip was to the Rock Creek Planetarium. So we go there, we're standing in line, and one thing these kids are really doing, they were like masters of psychological torture. And one thing they did that just drove me crazy was they would sing these jingles these commercials that they saw on TV. And even 40 years later, I still remember some of the jingles. One of them was, you asked for it, you got it, Toyota. And the other one was like for French's mustard, with or without the mustard. And they would do this all day long. And at the same time, these are 6-year-olds, and they had just started to learn like curse words. So they would say these words, but they didn't really know how to use them. So they put them in the songs, and it made no sense. So they'd be like, with or without the fuck, with or without the dick. And I'm like, that makes no sense. You have to use it in the proper context. And they're like, it's funny, what's your problem? So we're standing in line, and this one kid, I still remember his name, Matthew. I remember his last name, but I'm not going to say because he's probably like a lawyer out there somewhere. He's running around, and I keep telling him not to run around, and he just keeps running around. And finally, he trips, and he skins his knee, and he's on the ground, and he's crying, and I go up to him, he's fine, and I say to him, I told you not to run around. And I felt this such satisfaction. And then I was just so ashamed of myself because, the most satisfaction I had gotten this job was saying, I told you so to a 6-year-old. And how far had I come from that first day when I wanted to be their friend? So we go into the planetarium, and there's this park ranger there, and he's basically this like really nice, old, elderly, kindly, the stereotypical park ranger. And it was as if Santa Claus had become a park ranger. And we were so badly behaved that he kicked us out before the thing even started. And as we're filing out, he shoots me this look I'll never forget of just shame, like it's my fault, which, it kind of was. And then the third trip was probably the worst. It was our overnight to West Virginia. The one good thing about this camp was that it was a day camp, so I could go home at night and cry myself to sleep. But I couldn't do that now. So that night, each group had to build a campfire and cook hot dogs. So I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I mean, I was hired as a counselor in a day camp. I didn't have any training. I didn't know anything about building a campfire. And the only thing I knew was I'd read that story, To Build a Fire by Jack London. I'd written. And that guy freezes to death at the end. So, I flick a few matches in there and a few twigs, and of course it doesn't work. So we're standing around this pit, and we're watching these sad wisps of smoke just sort of rise into the cold night, into the void. And meanwhile, the other groups have got these like blazing campfires going that you could probably see them from space. And we could see those through the trees, the glowing of the other campfires, and we could hear the cracking and the popping, and we could smell the grilled hot dogs. And meanwhile, all my kids are like, they start whining because they're, hungry. And this one kid, this Matthew, the same kid that had fallen, had skinned his knee at the planetarium, he turns to me, and these are his exact words to me. He says, I've been to a lot of camps, and you're the worst counselor I've ever had. And I'm like, you're 6 years old. How many camps have you been to? I don't know if I should be offended by that or not. So finally, this other counselor comes over and makes our fire go. And all these kids are looking at me like, this was defective, we want another one. So then the next day, there's a lake there and there's swimming. Now, I had really bad ears, so anytime I got water in my ear, I would get ear infections. So I wasn't gonna go swimming. So some of the other counselors thought it would be really funny, these are my esteemed colleagues, to throw anybody who was not in their bathing suit into the lake. So they threw me into the lake. And they kind of had a silver lining because a few days later, I came down with a double earache, like these horrible ear infections in both ears. And it was the weekend, and I was just suffering. It was like my eardrums felt like they were being pureed by hot needles. And then Monday I went to the doctor, and that next week was the last week of camp. And the doctor's like, no, you can't go in. So I missed Monday, I missed Tuesday, I missed Wednesday, I missed Thursday. And I have to say, having a double earache was better than being a camp counselor. And so finally it was Friday, it was the last day of camp, and I decided, I still didn't feel that great, but I said, I'm gonna go in because it's the last day, and also I wanted to pick up my check for the summer, which was like $500. And so I get there, and it gets to the end of the day, and we go out to the parking lot, and all the kids are getting on the bus, and it was like one of the happiest days of my life, because this was over. And I see one of the kids doing something he's not supposed to do, like, I don't know, like scratching somebody's car with a rock or committing a Class C felony or something, I don't know. And I start to tell him to stop, and then I realize, wait a minute. When I get into my car and drive off, I'll never see any of these people again. And so that's what I did. Thank you.